definitely okay. Welcome to the stream. There is a conspiracy theory that the COVID-19 vaccine is a nefarious way to microchip people around the world. This is not true. I repeat, this is not true. But why do people believe conspiracy theories, and what do we do about that? I am looking forward to hearing your take by joining in on YouTube in the comment section. This is the only time I'm ever going to be inviting you to put conspiracy theories right there in the comment section. I look forward to you being part of today's show. We start with Alex Kaplan. Alex is a senior researcher for Media Matters for America.
Within the past year, we've seen conspiracy theories spread, such as QAnon, false claims of widespread voter fraud in the 2020 election, and the claim that a coronavirus vaccine will be used to microchip people. These all worry me because QAnon, which grew extensively in support during the pandemic, is inherently violent and can lead more people to extremism. That QAnon and the election fraud conspiracy theories undermine democracy and both contributed to the storming of the Capitol. And the microchip conspiracy theory worries me because it's gained a lot of traction and could potentially result in people refusing to take the vaccine.
So much to talk about. I want to welcome the guests so that you can talk to them. We have Spencer, we have Ramesh, we have Nadia. Spencer, hello. Tell everybody who you are, what you do.
My name's Spencer Sunshine. I have a PhD in sociology and I work as a monitor of far-right movements.
Good to have you. Ramesh, welcome back to the stream. Remind everybody who you are, what you do.
It's great to be back on the stream. My name is Ramesh Srinivasan. I'm a professor at UCLA in the Information Studies Department, and I wrote a book about how we restore humanity to technology called Beyond the Valley recently.
Nadia, hello. Tell everybody who you are, what you do.
Hi guys, I'm Nadia Brazier. I'm a psychologist and neuroscientist at Harvard studying misinformation.
Spencer, there was a tweet that you shared not too long ago, which was sort of like the top 3 or 4 conspiracy theories in the world. If you were going to do number one, what would be at number one as far as you're concerned?
I think for the last 100 years, the top conspiracy theory has been that there's a Jewish cabal that controls the world. That conspiracy theory has worked its way around the world and continues to pop up over and over again.
What's QAnon for people who are new to it, keep hearing it and then can't quite understand what that is?
QAnon is a kind of a meta-conspiracy theory. It takes other conspiracy theories and absorb it into it. It holds essentially that there's a cabal of satanic pedophiles that are in Washington, D.C. and control the Democratic Party.
Ramesh, what makes up a conspiracy theory? Why would it not be an urban legend, an urban myth, or just fake news, misinformation? What makes it a conspiracy theory?
As Spencer was just saying, there have always, for such a long time, conspiracy theories have been part of our social fabric. I think what's really different that we're witnessing today is how conspiracy theories have become more and more mainstream and have become part of popular and social movements. And I think a big reason why is because people have doubts and skepticism about the elitism associated, unfortunately, with science and technology itself, but also our political leaders and our corporate leaders and so on.
Nadia, why wouldn't these just be called lies?
So we talk about conspiracy theories as one type of falsehood or one piece of the misinformation landscape. And they are distinct in that they attempt to explain events as the secretive plots of powerful people. Which sets them apart from other kinds of lies and falsehoods we might see on the internet.
I want to play a little bit of an elite audio tape, and this is President Trump just before the runoff Senate elections for Georgia, talking about some of the things that he feels has happened. And I don't know whether he thinks it's actually happened or whether he wants the person he's talking to believe that they've actually happened. I don't know. I can't tell. But have a listen.
Now, do you think it's possible that they shredded ballots in Fulton County? Because that's what the rumor is. And also that Dominion took out machines. That Dominion is really moving fast to get rid of their machinery. Do you know anything about that? Because that's illegal.
This is Ryan, Germany. No, Dominion has not moved any machinery out of Fulton County. We're having.
Well, but have they moved? have they moved the inner parts of the machines and replaced them with other parts?
No,
You sure, Ryan?
I'm sure.
All right, what is happening here, Spencer, Ramesh, Nadia? Spencer, you start first of all. Is this the golden age of conspiracy theories when the President of the United States is sharing them and trying to change the way that a particular state it may well run its elections?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a golden age or not. Conspiracy theories have come to dominate different societies and governments at different periods in history. I think it's certainly the first time in recent history that we've seen conspiracy theories in the United States reach such a high level and have such a high platform. They've always been around in our country. I mean, anti-Masonic conspiracy theories started in the 1790s. So they're not a new thing here, but what's new is how central they are and how quick very fringe conspiracy theories can move from the margins into the mainstream.
Let me just go to YouTube because it's very busy here right now. Let me put this one to you, Ramesh. Hedisham says social media is used by these people to reinforce conspiracy theories. Education from an early age is needed to develop critical thinking skills so they aren't fooled, Ramesh.
That's absolutely true, but I do think that we really need to understand why conspiracy theories and sort of fringe, groups associated with conspiracy theories have become so much more mainstream, have become so much more popular, not just in the United States, but around the world. And I think it's because a lot of people feel alienated and left down, that idea of placelessness. But social media technologies are an incredible catalyst for promoting and making, viral many conspiracy theories because they are computationally predicting using incredibly sophisticated amounts of data that are being collected about us that we don't even know anything about. They are predicting what is going to grab our attention. So as a result, a fringe conspiracy theory can become the new normal. And we can see President Trump building a political coalition on the very basis of bringing together lots of conspiracy theories, lots of fringe groups, and you can build a coalition amongst an alienated population using that approach. It's straight out of a neo-fascist playbook.
It reminds me, Ramesh, of Savannah Guthrie, who is a US correspondent, and she was talking to President Trump during a town hall during election season, and she says, "You talk like somebody's crazy uncle." Nadia, is that a constructive way to talk about people who are sharing conspiracy theories? I cannot work out if President Trump believes them or not. What do you think?
So when talking to somebody who believes a conspiracy theory, it's important not to alienate them. For example, the term crazy might not be the most endearing or empathetic way to go about it. Social exclusion predicts belief in conspiracy theories. But it is also important to keep realistic expectations in mind because misinformation is really hard to correct. Even in the face of explicit debunking messages, people continue to make judgments and behave in ways that are shaped by misinformation. So going about it in an empathetic way and pointing out that, conspiracies do exist, but they tend to be brought to the public eye by whistleblowers or investigative journalists or government investigations and not Reddit users, for example.
All right, so Kabuki on YouTube shares this. My family are huge Trump supporters and are in denial of reality. Drives me crazy because it makes me question reality. One more for you, Nadia. I want you to deal with this one. This is Joe Chims. Conspiracy theories have long existed even before President Trump was born or he became president. And he's kind of exasperated that this seems to be in a time when we're paying particular attention to them. Nadia, you go first on this one.
Yeah, so we're living in uncertain times, and people are most vulnerable to conspiracy theories when they feel uncertain and lack control. They start to seek meaning and identify patterns in randomness. Ironically, these beliefs only make us feel less powerful, so conspiracy theories are more appealing than they are satisfying. But that might explain why now seems to be a particularly vulnerable moment.
There's a gentleman called Jeff Orlowski, and he is the director of a film called The Social Dilemma, and it looks at social media as being quite instrumental when it comes to misinformation and disinformation. And last week, when a number of people, a mob, infiltrated the Capitol building in the United States, he was interviewed and asked about the role that social media is playing in giving out bad information to people. This is what he told AP News.
These things are going to get worse because of social media. The trend and the trajectory is for more people to believe more inaccuracies, more bad information, more racist information, more hate speech. That's going to be the system. That's how the system's operating, right? And if you let that system keep going on autopilot, it's going to get worse. In my mind, it doesn't stop here with this event, unfortunately, right? These ideas haven't disappeared from the world. And these ideas are only going to continue to foment on these systems, and they're going to exponentially grow, just like the algorithms push for exponential growth.
I'm wondering, Ramesh and then Spencer, if this is what is different. Of course, we've had conspiracy theories through the years, but social media, is that what's making it different?
I think you have to layer the conditions of alienation that both Nadia and Spencer have alluded to. Like, people feel alienated, they feel let down, and we should think about in an empathic way where people are coming from at this time. Because often conspiracy theories, or in some cases, they might start with some kernel of skepticism or some kernel of an actually interesting and important question, right? Like, not all vaccines are good for everybody at all times, or perhaps technologies could emit radiation. But the fact that they amplify, they bubble up, and they polarize, because when we go on social media, we generally are in these walled gardens, right? We just see what people we follow have to say. The world is presented to us like it's like the real world, but it's actually the social media world. And we are being fed content that often reinforces or amplifies our own views, or, creates more sensationalism. So as a result, our very experience that democracy relies upon, that actually, quite honestly, even our media have let us down with the fragmentation of Fox News versus other channels, that is actually a huge problem, because democracy relies upon people having different opinions, but being able to come together in a tolerant and compassionate way to understand and communicate with one another. And that is the exact opposite of what is happening via social media. So the architecture of social media, which is based upon getting people's attention, keeping them on the same platform as much as possible, and extracting data and manipulating behavior accordingly, that is an architecture that is antithetical to democracy. So I don't want to say everything is caused by social media, but I do want to say that social media at this current moment is an amplification of this polarization crisis. And that's why we have to restore it in the image of greater humanity and actual democracy, a peoples-based democracy. That's what I believe in.
Why do people believe conspiracy theories, Spencer? And I'm going to share this with our audience from my laptop. This is from your Facebook page. When last week, Cowman, as the internet called him, was identified as you, and people believed it. Spencer, why and how is that even possible?
Well,
and let me just say, Spencer is not Cowman. He is not.
Thank you for clearing that up. Conspiracy theories, they answer a psychological need that people have, and they also act as strong. There's a strong emotional power to them, and they act as political mobilizers. And they're also useful to scapegoat different groups that are already sort of marginalized and oppressed in a society. Sometimes there's elites from above. They're often sort of groups from below that are already put down on. And sometimes they're very obscure figures or institutions. So I in this case, I fit in as the obscure figure. I acted as a scapegoat. This tweet was by Lynn Wood, who was one of the lawyers pursuing the Kraken lawsuits that the elections were rigged. And so he wanted to scapegoat Antifa and others for the violence at the Capitol. He's on the far right, and he wanted the far right not to take take responsibility for that. And then he also wanted to scapegoat a QAnon shaman or cowman, as instead of being one of the people of the far right itself, as actually belonging to someone else. So it was a sort of double scapegoat there. And that way they don't have
You
to
don't
take
even
responsibility
look like
for what they
him,
did.
Spencer. You don't even look
Well,
like him.
He's about 15 years younger than me, so I was actually quite happy that there was a confusion between the two of them.
All right. So earlier, I did say to our audience that this is the only time that you can put conspiracy theories into our comment section, and I will bring them up. So Ryan Nagy says, just because something is considered a conspiracy doesn't mean it's not true. Now we're stuck, Nadia, right?
Right, because conspiracies do occur. We know, for example, that the US National Security Agency spied on civilian internet users. So sometimes things that sound crazy actually are true, and sometimes these dark plots are actually taking place, and that's a big rub in correcting these beliefs. And a big part of a lot of conspiracy theories is that people who try to debunk them must be part of the plot. So that makes it really challenging.
Yeah, Ramesh, I see you nodding. Articulate your nod.
Yeah, I really appreciate what both Nadia and Spencer have said. And Spencer made a really important point about how those that are most vulnerable and marginalized in our world are not only scapegoated, but how this current, attention, spectacle-fueled way of making conspiracy theories go viral and become the new normal actually often harms people who are already vulnerable and marginalized. And we've seen that around the world, and our audience is global. And I just want to point out how a company like Facebook is not just a social media platform. It's the biggest media company in the history of the world. WhatsApp has basically annihilated many local ISPs and local kind of technology infrastructures. And so in places like Myanmar, in Burma, in Sri Lanka, in the Philippines, and many other countries in the world, those who have perpetrated human rights abuses and genocides in the case of Myanmar, or pushed and promoted conspiracy theories against minorities like Muslim people, indigenous people, activists, and so on, they have been legitimated by Facebook because Facebook does not understand the complexities of those countries, barely invests in global governance. And they have gone viral because their content just kind of rabble rouses, right? Mm-hmm. And that has resulted in real violence against people who are innocent of any of these supposed conspiracy theories of culpability. And so this is not just a concern about the internet and social media. This is a concern about the dignity of people who are already marginalized by our existing systems of power.
Earlier, we see a lot of those. Yeah, go ahead, Spencer.
We see a lot of those conspiracy theories in the U.S. One of my favorite ones in the last few years was by Stuart Rhodes of the Oath Keepers. They're one of the main militia groups. And he claimed that Mexican cartels were allowing ISIS sleeper cells to cross the U.S. southern border into the United States in order to help undermine our nation. So there we see a combination of a whole bunch of different kinds of conspiracy theories all wrapped into one. And there's one thing I wanted to add. People have sort of danced around this, partly in answer to the YouTube commentator's question about how there are real conspiracies and how do we know, is that conspiracy theories are very well structured. The structure of them hundreds of years ago looked pretty much the same as they look now, and they act in a pool of all the conspiracy theorists tend to get together and they work on the conspiracy theory and they create little permutations of it and they develop it over a long period of time. And that's one way we know how something is a conspiracy theory or not, to see
Spencer,
if it keeps the same
structure.
Can
can you briefly strip it down? If you see this and this and this in that story, it's a conspiracy theory. But very briefly, strip it down.
There'll be a small group of generally secretive people, and that they're pulling the strings of various problems, or they're causing various problems in society. That's the basic narrative.
Earlier, we spoke to Mick West, who is a writer, investigator, and debunker of conspiracy theories. And we talked to him about, so what do we do if conspiracy theories right now are not fringe, they're mainstream and are being amplified? This was his suggestion.
I think there's three aspects to helping people go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. And the first one is just to keep talking to people and try to understand what they believe and why they believe it, and try to keep it polite and respectful without necessarily agreeing with them, and make sure they understand that you have good intentions here. The second is to give people useful information, show them where they are wrong, show them things they may have missed, and show them broader context that is useful. And thirdly, you need to give it time. You can't expect it to work straight away. You've got to give it time. It might take days, it might take weeks, but you can actually help people out.
Spencer, did you manage to convince people that you were not Antifa and that you hadn't stormed the Capitol?
Well, I think I convinced my friends, but no, I don't think I convinced very many people about it. Maybe I wrote a story in the Daily Beast about it, and maybe one or two people saw that and were no longer convinced. But the conspiracy theory actually spread on. I became a CIA agent. I became arrested. So people not just not just abandon the belief, but they developed it further.
Wow. Ramesh, I know this is work that you're doing. Some of it is upfront and some of it is behind the scenes about what you do when conspiracy theories become mainstream. Share some of that work with us.
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the issues that's at play in Spencer's story is how once this happens and it goes viral, in many cases it's too late. The pain and suffering has already harmed, and maybe not Spencer directly, but others, right? And so my entire advocacy at this time is to ensure that our technology companies also serve the public interest, because they are monetizing our political lives, right? I mean, people go to Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and so on to get all their information, to get their news, to communicate with one another. But if those technologies are completely polarizing us because they're not trying to polarize us as an intentional design strategy, but they are designed to optimize to keep our attention and glue us in, which is ending up polarizing the larger environment. So if you're making money off of people's personal, intimate, political, even kind of behavioral lives, and you're not dedicated to some public principles of accountability, and I would also argue regulation, then you are actually harming society in a deep way. And I believe that folks in the technology world need to come to the table in a real way to have real collaboration and regulation occur. And that's what I've been kind of hustling behind the scenes. I've been trying to do everything I can to write about this. But again, my goal is not to vilify anybody, even those that might even create these conspiracy theories based on their feelings of alienation. My goal is collective empathy, and for us to all come together in the idea of a real democracy where we have different opinions, we have different views, we have different backgrounds, and our media support that. And I believe the technology companies, which are the wealthiest companies in the history of the world, can still do plenty well if they adhere to some elements of democratic and public interest.
One more thought I wanted to bring into our conversation. It's almost at the end, Nadi, but I wanted to share this, which is where you were looking at who shares conspiracy theories or fake news, misinformation the most. It tends to be people who are of a certain age, seniors. Perhaps if we spent more time with our seniors and talked to them, unpacked ideas, do you think that would make a difference, Nadia?
So one of the things that could make a huge difference in terms of preventing our older family and friends, coworkers from sharing misinformation would involve things like digital literacy, helping them to understand why they see the content they see, that algorithms are behind some of the content in their newsfeed. What does a share imply? It implies agreement. It's not clear that older users understand all of that. So I do think it can be very meaningful and important and impactful to have those conversations with the older people in our lives.
All right. What today's conversation has proven to me, Spencer, Ramesh, and Nadia, is that people love talking about conspiracy theories. We could do an entire week on them, and I'm sure people wouldn't be bored. YouTubers, thank you for sharing your conspiracy theories. This is the only time you're allowed to do it. Spencer, Ramesh, and Nadia, we really appreciate you unpacking what is going on, why these conspiracy theories are becoming so popular. And this is the end of today's show. It went fast, right? I will see you next time. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.